Hello and welcome to today's show. As always, I'm Lindsey Francis and you're listening to Rich, Simple, Human. Today I'm sitting down with Stella Kamba, and Stella is the founder of More Life Adventures. Stella and I had the beauty of connecting through the women's chapter, and if you don't know what that is, it's an incredible network of professional women coming together to support each other in quite possibly the most fantastic, beautifully authentic way. So Stella, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so honoured to be here.
It's absolutely great to see you. And as always, we've got about 1,000,001 topics that we could be talking about. But because you are a mountain fan and so am I'm going to start by asking you about the power of nature for those high performers that we know like to go hard or go home. Stella, why is nature so important to you and people who are performing very, very high?
Well, there's a lot of research that correlates time in nature with mental health, cognitive health, low stress, and just all those good things. So, if you'd like me to go into that research, I can. I think personally, just from experience, I've been lucky enough to be able to spend some time in nature in the summer and in the winter. Born in Greece, we had the opportunity to be in nature quite often. We were always given the opportunity in the summer to go to the beach, and in the winter we'd go to the mountain. And so I have maybe had a little bit of a baptism in that sense, and early memories of being in nature. And when I close my eyes to sort of get to sleep, I think of rolling hills, or I think of the sea. I've already digressed, haven't I? Why is nature?
Just described a sophrology exercise called the safe, calm place absolutely beautifully, because when we take ourselves to somewhere we feel relaxed and calm, often it is somewhere in nature. It certainly wouldn't be the middle of a busy restaurant, the middle of the office, or a shopping mall. So thank you so much for making that point to people. This is science-backed work that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, yes, science-backed and experience-backed, and sort of have paid for it with my life, I think. I've paid the price with my life, as in studied architecture, and back when I was studying, there was one thing that really motivated me to stay in the profession, and it was one famous architect sort of in his book said, it's the job of the architect to solve the problems of the city. And of course, that was very, very, very idealistic, and almost like a call to action. What I realized was, it's not the job of an architect to solve the problems of the city. It depends what problems they are, right? So unfortunately, the social problems of the city or the lifestyle problems of the city are unfortunately not up to architects. But I think just by living in the city, I realized what those problems were, and had to find some solutions, and had to seek a lot of coaches.
So city living, the digital age, and the incredible amount of data and information flying towards us at all times. Your company, More Life Adventures, provides a solution to that by taking people out and into nature. Stella, can you just explain a little bit about what those interventions often look like?
Yeah. We have 3 pillars, I suppose. It's move, connect, explore. Move is about moving your body or training with a coach. Connect is about living in community. And so having a group of 10 people sharing a big house is that community living. And then explore is about exploring a new place. And we try and bring people back to nature to explore the nature in different spots. We try and go to places that aren't too populated.
Up longing to join you. Stella, you work specifically with high performers, and I've got a question here for you about what patterns have you noticed about burnout in people who are really pushing themselves hard physically. mentally and emotionally?
I'll start with, I worked for 5 years as a PT, which I missed dearly. After architecture, I retrained as a PT. And, I was working in the city. Clients were hardworking people who also wanted to work hard in the gym. And I feel like I started paying attention to the recovery. Okay, what is your recovery like? What's your sleep like? What is your rest like? What are your holidays like? Are we getting enough rest so that we can push hard at work and in the gym? That was my PT experience. And then when I started running retreats, I realized we've interviewed quite a few of our guests by now, and sometimes guests will say, I didn't realize quite how fatigued I was until I came and could put my bags down and could breathe. And then I realized we've had a few people that just hadn't taken a holiday in a very long time because of work pressure, or because they'd started their own business and couldn't afford to take that time off. And the retreat, between you and me and our podcast listeners, if you are in a sort of like, oh, I just need a holiday, you just pay and go on a holiday. But you will only pay someone like us to create and craft a retreat for you where everything is taken care of, the training, the food, the exploring, the community. You will only pay for that if you are just, you know what, I really need to treat myself here. And that's what I found, that we're here for those people that need a treat. They've been working hard all year, and they just don't have the time to plan that sort of nurturing time out. I wish that more people would do that. I wish more people would say, Stella, here's the money, plan it for me, please. And I just want to pay and come and have no decisions to make. But the reality is right now, we get people who have worked really hard for this time off and just really need it.
And I think that time off is so important. Of course, if we were being idealistic, we would create a life that we didn't need to take a holiday from. But the reality is that simply doesn't seem to be possible in so many cases. And my job when I work with people, as a psychologist and a sophrologist, is to try and create daily habits that allow people to take a break, where they are going inside, mind and body being connected, and pulling back from this crazy pace. But this is only getting worse as technology improves, accessibility improves. I wonder, Stella, if people are using their devices, their phones, and maintaining that level of connectedness whilst they are away with you.
We're actually trying to make that not happen as much.
How do you do that?
It's a goal. I think the phone has been becoming increasingly more of a disruptor to being in the moment, being present. And so I can't say we've done a great job of it in the past, but it's on my list of, every year we have certain things to improve on. And this year we just need to break that phone habit. And we just, it doesn't need to be, you won't go on your phone all week, because we have Wi-Fi and people need to check their phones, right? But just, at the meal table, no one needs to be checking their phones at the meal table.
To say that, if you're eating and your body is trying to digest, the last thing you should be doing to your nervous system, if nobody else knows about this, is checking your phone. A gentle conversation by candlelight so your body digests and absorbs the nutrients properly. But as soon as we do this, and if people aren't watching on video, I'm doing that great thing of pretending to pick up my phone. Your body goes into fight or flight because it's waiting for the next instruction. It's waiting for the next, threat to come in, or the next bit of information that we might need to react to. It braces. You can't digest anything. And people, a lot of people come talk to me about weight or energy or inflammation. So I'm delighted that there's no phones at the table, Stella, and I hope one day we will see these digital detox retreats becoming perfectly normal. But for now, they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my team cannot be completely, we have to record some of the stuff that's going on so that we can then post it on Instagram or on the website. We have to have social proof that it's happening, that it was good, so that people can see what on earth we get up to. And unfortunately, that requires me or someone else on the team videoing things or taking pictures. But we have a plan for this year to, what's the word? Not have guests needing to use their phone to check what's been posted, Not to give too much away, but
It's a great app that somebody's telling about, and it's about a tree that you put it on your phone, and when you're not using your phone, the tree grows, and as soon as you pick your phone up,
yes, forest.
there you go. I wonder if your guests might like to use that as a little competitive
Sure.
edge.
That's a great idea.
Wouldn't that be fun? Because I think if you can deploy those sorts of tactics, you are dealing with very competitive, high-performing people. If you make it competitive, don't go near your phone. They may think that was a great challenge. I took a 2-week digital detox holiday with my family a couple of years ago. It was absolutely phenomenal until you realised you didn't have your phone and you needed an app for your credit card to work. That was a bit of a problem. And you couldn't actually access the Visa app to get into the country. But we had one phone between the four of us. But we're about to do it again. So it's a full digital detox, and I've got teenagers. And there's just something about the fact that they know they can do it that is incredibly comforting and reassuring. The world is not going to end if they lose their Snapchat streaks. And of course, adults say, I hear all sorts of nonsense. I often say to my clients, well, when you're at home and in bed with your family, you could put your phone in the car, as long as you don't live in a high crime area, of course. Why don't you put your phone in the car? They say, I can't. I say, well, who's going to ring you or need you between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m.? Well, I might, come on, tell me, what might you need? And there's this sense, isn't there, of urgency, of this need to be connected. But the reality is we need to be disconnected as well, and we need to be in nature. And I know you know that very, very well. Can I ask you about recovery? You mentioned it a couple of questions ago, the need for recovery. You're a PT background, you've experienced this. People are non-functional overreaching and overtraining constantly. I see it. I live in an Ironman community. I've never seen anything like it. My sweet spot is how can I train, riding another stage of the Tour de France, the Etape this summer. What's the minimum amount of training I can do to get by? What's the smallest amount I could do and the maximum amount of recovery to actually make that 8, 10, 12 hours on the bike feel achievable? That's not a mindset that exists, Stella, is it? It's normally more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic mindset, and we do have that more culture until the more starts to be counterproductive. There is a minimum dose of minimum recovery dose. If you start training more than you're recovering, then you're just overtraining and you're going to get injured. It's very simple sort of training, but the psychology of sometimes, especially if you're training without a trainer who would make you rest or would design your program so that you are getting enough rest, or at least experiment with how much rest you need, because if you come back and the next day and you come exhausted, the trainer is definitely going to say, okay, clearly you didn't rest enough, let's rest some more. If you're training on your own and you're just in this mindset of I've got to get really good, sometimes people tend to overtrain. I did it to myself many years ago, where I just, life was all about getting fitter and stronger, and I injured myself, and then I had to pay the price. And it's quite common, I think.
What's your top tips for recovery activities? I'm using that word that I don't really like together, recovery activities. And what would you suggest to people if they say, "Oh, what do you mean by recovery? What should I be doing?"
By recovery, do you mean stress relief, like down regulating, like reducing stress?
Well, I think that's a really good question. If they're not training and they're not working, and you say, "Are you recovering enough?" What would you expect them to be doing for recovery?
Phoning a friend.
Mm-hmm.
It depends what. So for example, if someone has just spent a day dealing with Excel sheets, they could go and make a meal, cook or garden, or do something creative that sort of de-stresses their brain, or like takes away the cognitive stress. If they've been farming, I suppose they need to rest their body. If they've been emotionally stressed, then they just maybe need to journal or phone a friend or have a little cry, or do something where they express. So I think stress recovery is depends on what you've been stressing yourself with, I guess. But generally, I think, to when you think of when we were in caveman times, when the lion would come and we'd be stressing about escaping the lion, and we'd sort of escape the lion, go have a hug with our family, and the stress would go down. These days, it's not the lion, it's the stress at work, or the phone notifications, or the stuff that we tend to maybe not recover as easily from. So I would say laughing, crying, physical activity, obviously, slowing down your breath, which is part of the physical activity a lot, but not always. Physical touch, obviously, hugs and all that. And anything creative where you paint, journal, or express yourself.
Recovery is very personal and very, very bespoke, because what looks like recovery for one person perhaps might not feel like recovery for another. And like you say, if you've been at the screen all day, you need to move more. If you've been out moving because that's your job, you need to probably move less. It's a very tailored conversation. And I use the words very often, indigenous longevity protocols, which I have yet to make go viral as a hashtag. But like you say, when we were in cavemen times, the recovery was being in community, singing, dancing, moving, chanting. This vagus nerve stimulation, we're together, we might be, touching physically, it might be massage. There was always sort of grooming, women were grooming each other's hair, they were engaging in this beautiful community living. And, I don't know about you, but I spend evenings where it's just me and the dog. Okay, I try and stroke the dog, but he's not brushing my hair, sadly. But it's very, very personal. What do you like to do, Stella, for yourself?
I love a good massage. Oh, that's such a treat. I actually, now that you said combing hair, I think that's something I would totally pay for to have done. Like just someone plaiting, is that how you say it? Plaiting my hair, or just doing my hair in any kind of way. I think it's part physical touch and part just care or love.
I was in Japan recently, and I noticed that there were things called head spas. And I thought, oh my gosh, what's that? And when I spoke to my children, they said, oh yes, it's all the rage on TikTok. Mummy, have you not seen it? And you go for an hour and you lay in this beautiful chair and they wrap you up and they just basically do nice things with your hair and massage your hair. I was like, oh my goodness. So people are catching on. But of course, we don't do it to each other. If I came around to your house, had a coffee and brushed your hair, that would be very weird. Maybe we could try it, but it's not something that we do in our community anymore.
I think, if you'd braid your daughter's hair, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah. So we haven't completely lost it. It's just, I think we just don't get enough time. I suppose it depends, but I feel like my social time has been reduced, even though it should increase in the city, but sometimes it's reduced. So I go on other people's retreats.
I love that. I'm going to ask you afterwards which ones you like going on. For anybody who's listening, please make sure you do go to More Life Adventures and check out their retreats, nobody else's, because as far as I'm concerned, they're much more dialed in to improving your consciousness and effectiveness in the world. Stella, I think there's so many things that we could talk about, and recovery is a really important one. I just wanted to say also to anybody that's been watching White Lotus, or if you haven't been watching it, do you know the lady comes around with the bag and takes everybody's devices? Stella doesn't do that on her retreats, although I think she should. And I would love to be that person if I could, Stella, who comes and takes the devices away. And the billionaire gets very, very upset, especially because his company's collapsing because he's been undergoing some massive tax fraud. But when we say to people, I give you permission to disconnect, I encourage you to disconnect, they do need quite a lot of support. And we've got this attachment to our devices that subconsciously we don't even realise we've created. And the anxiety when we take them away is actually quite extraordinary. I use wearable health trackers, normally Whoop or Aura, to show people how much they're trashing their data by using their phone. So you use your phone after 8 o'clock at night, you use it first thing in the morning, you will see your HRV, your heart rate variability, going down. Most important thing is that we're not on those blasted screens, but we're actually looking at the sky. And somebody said to me the other day, sky before screen in the morning. I thought, isn't that
That's
brilliant?
yeah.
Isn't it great? Sky before screen. And they were actually very funny. So what they said is, you open the windows Disney princess style and get your head out, especially if you're in the city. Now,
Sure.
In London, you're just looking at grey sky constantly, I find. But if you can find a patch of sunshine, stand in it. Really try and absorb all of that.
Yeah, daylight in the morning regulates your cortisol and melatonin, so it's always a good idea to get as much daylight as you can.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that we don't do enough in the city. And there was a really interesting study recently about Silicon Valley and the vitamin D deficiency. They have some of the biggest numbers of sunlight days, but people aren't outside absorbing the sunlight. They're just indoors working and working and working.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about any particular client or team transformation that really exemplifies the impact of your work and your life adventures?
We had someone a few years ago who went back home, hadn't had a proper break in a long time, and went home and made a whole bunch of life changes. And they had like a little bit of a teary moment during the retreat, and then went home and made a whole bunch of work changes, personal life changes. And I thought, I am so glad that I got to witness that they got to come on our retreat and have a think about their lifestyle and go back and improve it. I thought that was pretty much what I could hope to give to anyone, that if anything isn't working, or if anything needs fine-tuning, then by taking a week out and getting some distance from your circumstances, you can think about it. We can give you some habits, for example. We can give you sustainable habits that will de-stress you, help you eat, train, sleep well, and create some headspace for you to think about what you're doing back in your normal life. And then when you go home, you can, and during the retreat, we encourage people to journal. Not everybody wants to, but we encourage them to sort of keep a little diary. And then when you go home, you've reflected on things, you've chatted to people about things, and you just feel more rested, because changes take energy. And so I think that's all I hope to give people, is just the opportunity to make lifestyle changes for the better.
Some people are thinking, let's go to Ibiza for a week, and we're not talking about just taking a holiday. We're talking about pressing pause, removing yourself from the grind, and as you articulated earlier, being looked after. Your food is taken care of, your nutrition is taken care of, your movement is being organised, and you're there really to just go into that recovery piece, connect with nature, and as you said, move, connect, explore both the outer world and the inner world. And if that's not enough of a sales pitch for people to book straight away, please go to the website now and choose the date that works for you. Stella, I think the word consciousness is something that you and I used a lot when we were talking, prepping for the chat. And this awareness of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual is something that, with AI and the pace of life, I actually see declining. What's your personal experience on, or can you remember a moment, or what experience do you have of really beginning to understand that conscious awareness is so important to you to live a fulfilling life?
Oh, there's been a lot of moments. I think it's been a journey, I think, from maybe the age of 18, where I started moving countries at 17. So at 17, I went to Paris, and then I went to London the year after. And I was just, for the first time, kind of forced to deal with some strong feelings, and realized I need to be able to process everything, the difficult. And I think up to that point, I had been numbing my feelings for a bit. What was the question? I'm really good at forgetting and side,
Not at all. I think it was a question really about a moment of consciousness. Why is consciousness important? What's your experience of becoming conscious?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It's a huge question.
I think that was the first memory I have of fiercely journaling to come to terms with what I was feeling. I think being neurodiverse, sometimes you don't have great access to great awareness of what you're feeling. And I don't want to speak for every neurodiverse person, just for myself, I think. And if anyone relates, great. But I feel like sometimes I don't know what I'm feeling. So I had to do that sort of prolonged journaling. Got into the habit of journaling quite early on, as soon as I left home. And I think it gave me some tools to process reality and the uncomfortableness of reality. And then I think around the age of 27, which apparently is quite a common age for people to have a life crisis, I remember feeling like very alone in the world. I remember having lost my best friend. He moved away, moved to like a different country. And I remember thinking, like, what is the point of life? What is my purpose? I was totally lacking in a sense of purpose. I thought, clearly I'm not married. I'm not about to have children. I don't know what I'm doing with my job. And it just seemed like, why am I here? What was the purpose again? And I had a moment, like I had a faith moment where someone introduced me to like the concept of God, that, you were created by something out there that was not your parents. Your parents brought you to this world, but you were actually designed by a higher power. And if anything, that helped me to think, oh, there is a purpose that's been designed. And so there's a reason I'm here. So I better stick with it. Better stick with this life and find out. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but I think that was more years after. I think I started I was introduced to mindfulness, and I started paying attention, just observing the thoughts that come into my head, which were very often very unhelpful, very negative, or very judgmental towards myself. I would sort of do something and then go back and rethink it and think, why did I do that? And then I started observing the judgment, and just the act of observing it helped me to like just let it pass. Okay, back to a level playing field where we're not judging ourselves every second. I think those maybe are 3 possible awareness or consciousness moments I can pinpoint.
I could have asked you about, I could have asked you, Stella, how did you become enlightened? But it sounds like such a daft question. But what you just described is that awakening that practitioners like you and I in this field seem to always go through. There's always a moment where we think, oh, that's when I sort of began to wake up. I began to realize that I have 2 options here. I can sense these emotions, which I can't make sense of, and I can numb them, or I can begin to think, what are these emotions? And now can I try and process them? And they're 2 very, very different ways of behaving. And when I see clients in my practice, I can absolutely tell you that the number of people, one of my opening questions is always, how do you want to feel? They can tell me kind of how they feel: rubbish, annoyed, angry, irritated, tired. But they often can't tell me how they want to feel, because they don't have the emotional range or the granularity to be able to pinpoint what it is they're looking for, because they haven't done the processing bit that you've just described. And journaling is an amazing way of doing that. And this mindfulness practice, learning to observe rather than judge ourselves, and it's also so sophrology, as well as that sort of mindfulness practice. But it's transformational work, Stella, so well done for doing it. It's got you to where you are today.
I think also there was a fourth moment, and I can't remember exactly where, but I played the victim for a very long time. Oh, this happened to me, and therefore I am like this. And there was one moment, I think probably a podcast, or and I realized you have to create the energy that you want, and create the feelings that you want, and create the circumstances that you want. But I didn't realize that it all boils down to creating that energy. And I am generally quite a low, like my voice is like not very loud, and I I'm generally sort of, I try to keep the energy low in a conversation. But for myself to get up in the morning and get going, I have to play the music, dance around, I have to generate that energy, which I didn't realize that was the case early on in life. It was, this happened, therefore I'm like this, what can we do? So yeah.
Everyone's more introverted. I run with massive high energy, and it's been my absolute detriment because I've been burnt out and used all sorts of other coping mechanisms. And I have two children. One is super high energy, and one is very different. And when we know ourselves, and you talked about purpose earlier, I always say to people, really, in my experience, finding your purpose is discovering your gifts and talents, God given or otherwise, and then giving them away. And when you realize, you've been designed like that, you're intentionally made. And then the question is, for what purpose? And then what plans are there out there? And I think that's a lovely way of putting it. And I hope that's encouraging for listeners who think, oh yeah, that's me. And sometimes you have to bring it. You have to get it moving, get it going. And the reverse for me is true. I have to turn it off. And turning it off with a bottle of wine is not what I would recommend to anybody. Let's try and turn it off with a bit of mindfulness, meditation, visualization, breath work.
And can I also say with others, I think I've been blessed, and you spoke about the women's chapter, I've been blessed with, we don't exist in isolation. Like, with all the will in the world, trying to create these things for yourself is a bit of an impossible task, and was never meant to be a solo task. I think right now we're having a conversation, exchanging energy, and everything that I've done in life or been able to do, it's been because someone inspired me, or someone gave me a bit of food for thought, even someone who I didn't know through a podcast or through a book. It was, I learned something, or I was inspired, and I think we are doing it together. We are doing it with other people that we find inspiring, friends that inspire us, and yeah, it's always a team effort.
We cannot do this alone. And I think that's why I retreat. You're coming away from your normal, but you're also coming into another community of people who are like-minded, who are focusing on doing the work together. And I would urge anybody who's looking at their calendar for this year to consider how they might go about doing that, because it is truly, truly transformational.
And on that point, I'm so sorry. Really, that clarity that comes about in that clarity that everyone gets on a retreat. It comes through conversation. You don't just land on a new place and suddenly get enlightened. You just, you share meals and you share a workout, and you do like really super mundane things like do the laundry together, or, share, I don't know, hey, can I borrow your shampoo? Very simple things where you just live in community, and slowly or quite quickly you realize these people are just like me, or maybe quite a lot like me, and I can share my life with them because they're not going to judge me. We're all here on this foreign land, and we've all been made to do this workout, and I might as well share my sort of, life aspirations. Like, what else am I going to do? And it's fun to see that happen. I think for me, it's super, super fun, because I was telling you, I was once the kid in the summer camp who was sort of sent there to spend the summer, and was, thrown with all these other kids, and made an amazing month out of it.
It's a transformation experience, being in community and being united through challenge. It's, if we think back to COVID, some of us got brought together through challenge. Some of us obviously ended up very isolated, and we also know that loneliness kills. But community is something I've heard you say so many times, Stella, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. It's so important, and the fact that your retreat offering is authentic, and it really has a desire and a heart behind it. Has just been absolutely wonderful to hear about. So I really do appreciate that. Stella, if anybody would like to know more about what you do, what's the best place to find you? And also tell us a little bit about what's coming up for this year. If you are still listening in 2025, of course, we hope for some longevity here, but tell us a little bit about what people can do to engage.
Yeah. I mean, you can find me personally on any platform you use. I'm on Instagram, stella.kamba. I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me, stella@morelifeadventures.com. And our website is www.morelifeadventures.com. What is coming up is, depending on how much time you have, we have a weekend in Wales in May that is all about hiking up Mount Snowdon and climbing down and celebrating together. And that's like the shortest duration that we have. And then we have weeks in Crete starting from May until September. And these are 7 nights at our villa by the sea, and they are coached weeks. You do coached training and relaxing, some boat trips, some hiking together, and it's where we do all our healthy breaks. So Crete is our sort of summer house. And then we have a training camp in October, and we have a Madeira adventure in October, which is all about hiking and doing some adventure sports in Madeira, one of my favorite places in the world. And new for this year, we've just launched a Chamonix week, which is all about hiking and yoga and a little bit of a trail running.
I know that I've got quite an active following as well. So anybody who's interested in any of that, especially remembering September bike season's coming to an end, you will have done your big adventing, get yourself over to a retreat, do a bit of trail running, get ready for the winter. But also some sunshine in Madeira would be rather wonderful. I cannot wait. So I'm going to get my diary out after this, see what I can book myself onto. Until next time, Stella, the most important thing to say is I appreciate you. I have enjoyed being connected in this way so much. And if anybody wants to come and talk to me about sophrology, if they can't make a retreat or they'd like to add that to it, please do let me know. You can always find me at lindseyfrancis.co.uk, Lindsey with an E, Francis with an E. And until next time.